It was supposed to be a solemn day, a funeral, a time for mourning. But instead, my day turned into a nightmare when Karen, the self-proclaimed HOA enforcer, decided that my car was illegally parked and needed towing immediately. Little did she know, the tow truck driver wasn't just obedient, he was recording everything. Within minutes, her power trip turned into public humiliation. Neighbors gathered, cameras rolled, and the entire confrontation was captured live. What started as an attempt to intimidate me ended up exposing the HOA's ridiculous rules and Karen's obsession with control. The day began with a quiet sorrow, a funeral procession rolling slowly through the neighborhood, neighbors dressed in black, cars lined up along the street. Everything seemed normal, respectful, and somber, until the first sign of chaos appeared. Karen, the infamous HOA president known for her petty rules and personal vendettas, had spotted my car parked slightly past the designated line. To her, this was not just a minor infraction, it was an opportunity to flex her self-appointed authority. She stormed out of her house, papers clutched tightly, yelling across the street with such volume that heads turned, people paused mid-step, and the serenity of the morning shattered instantly. Neighbors who had come to pay their respects now witnessed a different kind of drama unfolding, one that had nothing to do with mourning. Karen's face was red, her eyes blazing, and her finger pointed directly at my car as if she were accusing it of a personal crime. The air buzzed with tension, even the wind seemed to pause, carrying only the sound of her aggressive commands. Her voice echoed, "That car cannot stay here. Tow it immediately." It wasn't just a demand, it was a decree, one she expected to be obeyed without question. Little did she know, the tow truck driver she had summoned had his own plans. He was a veteran in the area, known for refusing unlawful or petty commands, and today, he had decided that he would record every moment of Karen's meltdown. His camera angle captured everything, her frantic gestures, her self-righteous yelling, the cluster of neighbors now gathering around, whispering among themselves, and my calm but assertive stance beside my vehicle. Every second added fuel to the tension, as if the neighborhood itself sensed that Karen's time as the ultimate authority figure was about to end. As Karen's volume increased, so did the curiosity of the crowd. People began filming from their phones, capturing her tirade, while others approached cautiously, questioning whether this behavior was even legal. The HOA's rules were notorious for being vague, arbitrary, and heavily favoring the board members. But this morning, under the scrutiny of live cameras and numerous witnesses, Karen's selective enforcement was about to be exposed in full view of everyone present. Every twitch of her hand, every stomp of her heel, was documented. Every angry shout only highlighted her obsession with control. At that moment, the tow truck driver, calmly positioned at the edge of the street, spoke up. His voice carried over the chaos but remained neutral, professional. "I'm not towing this car," he stated clearly, holding his phone up to continue recording. Karen's eyes widened. She hadn't expected anyone to challenge her authority directly, especially not someone with a tow hook and an official license. The neighborhood watched in stunned silence. Karen, flustered but undeterred, tried to argue, to remind the driver of her position, of the HOA's rules, but the moment was already slipping out of her hands. The cameras had captured her aggressive behavior and selective enforcement, and for the first time, she was the one on trial in front of an audience. The energy in the street shifted. People whispered among themselves, shocked that one woman could so boldly attempt to enforce personal power during such a solemn event. Some neighbors moved closer, hoping to see the confrontation escalate, while others quietly filmed, knowing that social media would soon explode with this absurd HOA drama. Karen's face twisted with frustration, her lips moving rapidly, but the tow driver remained calm, methodically recording every movement. He had seen too many power-hungry HOA presidents in his career, and he knew that the law, witness testimony, and viral exposure were on my side today. Karen, realizing that the crowd's attention had shifted away from the funeral entirely, attempted a new tactic. She reached into her clipboard, as if preparing another stack of violation notices. But as she lifted the papers, a strong gust of wind caught them, scattering them across the street. Papers flew into the lawns, bouncing off cars, and landing at the feet of neighbors who now couldn't help but laugh at the ridiculousness. Her authoritative image faltered under the simple force of nature, and the neighborhood's amusement grew. Karen, flustered but desperate to regain control, shouted louder, but the wind had already turned a serious power move into a farcical spectacle. Even the mourners who had been initially shocked began exchanging smiles, the absurdity of the moment offering a brief reprieve from grief. My calm stance, arms crossed beside my car, contrasted sharply with Karen's chaotic energy. The tow driver continued recording, ensuring that every angle of her meltdown would be captured, from her finger wagging aggressively to the now chaotic pile of violation notices strewn across the pavement. People in the crowd began posting clips to social media, tagging HOA watchdog groups and neighborhood forums, igniting a chain reaction of awareness about her tyrannical enforcement tactics. Karen, realizing that her dramatic commands were being recorded and shared, tried to regain her composure by addressing the crowd. She attempted to invoke authority. This is an official HOA matter. But the tension of the morning, combined with the viral potential of the footage being captured, undermined every word. Neighbors began whispering about other infractions, past abuses, and selective enforcement by the HOA, turning the street into a stage of collective indignation. Karen was now losing control not just over the immediate confrontation but also over her reputation. Every word she yelled, every gesture she made, only amplified the scrutiny she was under. She raised her voice one last time, a loud siren echoed down the street. It wasn't the police coming for me, it was a funeral escort, returning down the avenue. But the timing couldn't have been more perfect. The approaching vehicles added pressure, highlighted the public attention, and forced Karen to pause mid-sentence. All eyes were now on her. And as the tow truck driver held up his phone, still recording, a thought crossed the neighborhood's collective mind. Was this the moment Karen would finally face the consequences of her overreach? The confrontation had escalated far beyond a simple parking dispute. It had become a public spectacle, captured live, poised to go viral. Neighbors whispered about sharing clips online. Karen, red-faced, caught mid-rant, had no idea that every word, every gesture, would soon define her legacy in the community. And at that exact moment, the tension was at its peak. The next move would determine if she reclaimed her fragile authority or became a permanent example of HOA hypocrisy for the entire neighborhood to witness. Karen froze, mid-rant, as the funeral procession passed by slowly, everyone watching. The tow truck driver's camera was rolling, neighbors were filming, and the next move could either crush her power or escalate into total neighborhood chaos. The street had transformed into a live stage. What was meant to be a quiet funeral now resembled a chaotic scene straight out of a viral HOA showdown. Karen, furious and red-faced, tried to reassert her authority, waving her clipboard with a mix of desperation and entitlement. Every movement was caught on phones, every yell amplified by the murmurs of the crowd. Her attempts to intimidate were crumbling under the weight of public attention. Even the neighbors who typically stayed neutral were now leaning in, eager to witness the confrontation. Cameras, both professional and handheld, captured every detail, turning the ordinary suburban street into a spectacle of outrage and suspense. The tow truck driver, calm and collected, maintained a professional distance but kept recording. Each time Karen tried to shout over the crowd, he angled the camera perfectly, ensuring that her hypocrisy was visible in every frame. The tension reached a fever pitch when she stormed closer to my car, demanding compliance, only to step on the scattered papers from her earlier gust of wind mishap. The sound of crunching underfoot symbolized the beginning of her unraveling control. The crowd's whispers grew louder, eyes shifting between Karen's wild gestures and the calm defiance of a homeowner standing his ground. Just as Karen prepared another round of commands, a neighbor unexpectedly stepped forward. He was known for his outspoken attitude toward HOA injustices, and today he carried undeniable evidence of previous selective enforcement. Documents, photos, and records of fines imposed inconsistently across the community were suddenly thrust into view. The crowd reacted immediately, murmuring with disbelief. Karen's mouth opened, but words failed her as the documents were passed around, exposing her pattern of arbitrary punishments. The tension surged again, now mixed with the excitement of public accountability. Then, another twist. The tow truck operator, sensing the perfect moment, announced that the footage he was capturing would be shared online immediately. Karen's eyes widened, realizing that every second of her meltdown could be seen by hundreds, perhaps thousands, within minutes. The previously supportive neighbors began to murmur about posting the video to HOA watchdog forums. Some reached for their own phones, eager to document the unfolding drama. Karen's attempts to regain composure were futile. Her authority was being dismantled before the entire community. As she tried to intimidate another neighbor who questioned her authority, Karen made a critical misstep. She demanded that the homeowner move his car immediately, citing vague rules. But the crowd now understood the pattern: selective enforcement targeting specific residents. Her words fell flat, drowned out by murmurs of outrage and laughter. The neighborhood, previously silent witnesses, now actively documented and commented on every gesture. The entire scenario became an instant lesson in public exposure. Power can only be maintained when unchecked, and today, it was being systematically dismantled. A minor but telling incident occurred when a young teenager, filming from the sidewalk, accidentally tripped over one of Karen's scattered violation notices. The camera wobbled slightly, capturing Karen's reaction in full, exaggerated disbelief. This small moment drew even more attention from the crowd. Everyone began laughing at the absurdity of her self-important stance collapsing in real time. The funeral, meant to honor a solemn moment, now had a parallel narrative: Karen's meltdown, her selective enforcement exposed, and the community bearing witness to her unraveling control. Major reveal came unexpectedly. One of the HOA board members, attempting to back Karen's authority, was caught in the footage leaving his luxury SUV parked partially on a neighbor's lawn, a blatant violation of the very rules Karen was trying to enforce. The crowd erupted, pointing fingers, whispering to each other, and capturing every second on video. Karen's expression shifted from anger to panic. Her credibility evaporated as the public and recorded evidence combined to expose not just her, but the HOA board's blatant hypocrisy. The dynamics of power had shifted entirely. A surge of neighborhood support for the homeowner grew, voices joining together in protests against arbitrary HOA power. While Karen tried to regain the moral high ground, she realized too late that she had underestimated the collective awareness and courage of the residents. The crowd now had the upper hand, cameras rolling, documentation spreading instantly across social media. Karen's aggressive attempts to control the narrative were now irrelevant. The video evidence and public opinion had rewritten the rules of engagement entirely. When the funeral procession began to move away, signaling the end of the initial gathering. Yet Karen, still determined, tried one last power move. She approached the homeowner, threatening additional fines, citing obscure clauses. The tow truck driver, still recording, captured the confrontation in slow, cinematic detail. Neighbors stopped to watch, some whispering, some openly laughing, all knowing that the moment was already trending online and that Karen's influence was slipping faster than ever. Karen froze mid-threat, realizing that her own board members' car violations had just gone live online. The crowd circled, cameras pointed at her, and the homeowner's calm defiance suggested that the final blow was imminent. What would she do next? Could she recover her lost authority? Or was the entire HOA reputation about to crumble in public view? The sun climbed higher in the sky, illuminating every detail of the suburban street where the confrontation had unfolded. What had begun as a solemn funeral had now transformed into a viral spectacle, a full-scale HOA meltdown captured on countless phones, security cameras, and the tow truck driver's live feed. Karen, red-faced and flustered, tried to regain control, but the energy of the street had shifted completely. The homeowner, calm and resolute, leaned against his car, reviewing the video footage already being shared online, while neighbors gathered, murmuring and laughing, the collective sense of justice electrifying the atmosphere. As Karen waved her clipboard and shouted vague threats, it became clear that she had lost any remaining credibility. Every attempt to reassert her authority was undermined by live footage showing board hypocrisy, improperly enforced rules, and the blatant violations of the HOA's own leaders. Neighbors whispered about previous fines and arbitrary rules, many recalling incidents where Karen had targeted others unfairly. The streets buzzed with energy, an electric tension that promised one thing: the homeowner would not be bullied, and Karen's power trip was reaching its peak collapse. The first twist of the morning came unexpectedly. One of the HOA board members, attempting to rescue Karen's fading authority, accidentally tripped over the scattered violation notices from the earlier gust of wind. The camera on the tow truck captured every detail, from the stumble to the awkward attempt to maintain composure. The crowd erupted with laughter, phones raising automatically to record. Karen's furious glare shifted toward him, then back at the homeowner, realizing that she could no longer manipulate perception or hide behind intimidation. The balance of power had tipped decisively. A neighbor stepped forward, holding printed screenshots from the live feed, proving that multiple vehicles owned by HOA board members were in clear violation of the very rules Karen had tried to enforce on my car. The crowd gasped in unison, some whispering, some openly mocking, as Karen's face turned a deeper shade of crimson. The homeowner remained silent, letting the evidence speak for itself, a quiet but powerful demonstration of authority backed by truth. Cameras rolled, capturing every exasperated gesture and failed attempt at intimidation, broadcasting her hypocrisy to anyone who cared to watch. Then came the second twist. The tow truck driver, who had been recording every angle, stood beside the homeowner and announced, "All of this is going online within the hour." Karen's jaw dropped as she realized that the footage would not only circulate among neighbors but could easily be seen by local media, HOA watchdog groups, and social media platforms. The thought of public humiliation in such vivid detail froze her momentarily. Her voice quivered, her hands waved ineffectively, and for the first time, she appeared powerless, vulnerable, and utterly human in the eyes of the crowd. The tension escalated further when an elderly neighbor, previously quiet, stepped forward to confront Karen about selective enforcement and harassment of residents. He calmly listed previous incidents, referencing documented fines and arbitrary punishments, some of which Karen had personally overseen. The crowd grew louder, murmuring, filming, sharing the story live. Karen attempted to speak, but her words were drowned out by collective outrage. The homeowner subtly gestured to the gathered neighbors, who nodded in silent solidarity, reinforcing the sense that Karen's influence had evaporated entirely. Then came the public humiliation. A local reporter, alerted by a neighbor, arrived at the scene and began filming Karen's desperate attempts to regain control. Her earlier assertiveness had collapsed into frantic gestures and stammering explanations. The homeowner, standing beside his undamaged car, explained the events calmly and logically, contrasting sharply with Karen's escalating panic. Every word she uttered, every raised finger, every flustered gesture was recorded in high definition, ready to be shared across platforms. The neighborhood erupted in laughter, disbelief, and empowerment, witnessing an authoritarian figure toppled in real time. Another dramatic twist occurred when Karen, realizing her authority had completely collapsed, attempted to invoke obscure HOA bylaws to justify her actions. The crowd collectively groaned as the homeowner, prepared with legal documentation, quickly disproved each claim. Cameras captured her flailing attempts to regain credibility, the crowd's murmurs turning into laughter and applause. Even the previously neutral board members looked embarrassed, some whispering among themselves, aware that they had failed to enforce rules fairly and had been publicly exposed. The balance of power had shifted irrevocably. By mid-morning, the street had become a theater of public accountability. Karen's shouting had diminished to muttering under her breath, neighbors recording, sharing, and commenting. The funeral procession, now long past, seemed like a distant memory compared to the spectacle that had taken over the block. The homeowner, finally stepping forward, addressed the gathering calmly. He explained the situation, highlighted the absurdity of the fines, and exposed the board's hypocrisy. The crowd cheered, cameras rolled, and Karen's previous intimidation tactics crumbled into public ridicule. The final twist and ultimate blow came when the HOA president herself accidentally tripped over one of her own scattered notices, falling into a hedge. The moment was captured live from multiple angles, ensuring that no nuance was lost. Laughter erupted, some tears mixed in from sheer absurdity, and the crowd finally began to disperse, satisfied with the outcome. Karen, humiliated, red-faced, and powerless, realized that her attempts to control the narrative, bully the homeowner, and assert selective enforcement had failed spectacularly. Her reputation, once feared, was now publicly ruined. As cameras continued recording, neighbors approached the homeowner, offering words of support, documenting the story for social media, and praising the calm yet firm way he had handled the situation. Karen, still flustered, retreated to her house, leaving behind the scattered papers, a chaotic street, and a lesson for everyone watching. The HOA's arbitrary rules, her obsession with control, and her selective enforcement had been exposed in real time. The crowd, the media, and countless viewers online had witnessed a dramatic reversal of power, a small but undeniable victory against unchecked HOA tyranny. Karen closed her door, but the video footage was already online, trending in the neighborhood, on HOA watchdog pages, and social media. The homeowner, standing tall, knew the story wasn't just over, it had gone viral, and her reputation as the neighborhood tyrant would never recover.